pre-dawn federal raid to remove Elian Gonzalez, a forceful end to an emotional tug-of-war.
He was screaming and crying, "Don't take me."
The most important thing is that Elian is safe and that no one was seriously hurt.
Tonight, father and son together. Miami's Little Havana in turmoil.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News, reported by John Seigenthaler.
Good evening, everyone. Elian Gonzalez, the 6-year-old Cuban boy at the center of a dramatic tug-of-war, is in the custody of his father tonight. Armed federal marshals took the boy by force from his Miami relative's home in a surprise pre-dawn raid. The reaction in Miami, outrage from the Cuban-American community. Tonight, this is the scene in Little Havana where throughout the day protesters have set fires in the streets. In the Matanzas province of Cuba, 85 miles east of Havana, near the spot where the Bay of Pigs landing occurred, this scene. Fidel Castro speaking at a rally that had been planned before today's events. It has taken on special significance. We begin our coverage of this unusual day with NBC's Kerry Sanders.
4:30 a.m. Outside Elian Gonzalez's Miami home, only a few dozen supporters remain. Local police uninformed of the pending raid.
Hey, wake up!
5:05 a.m. Heavily armed U.S. Marshals and Border Patrolmen stormed the house from all sides. In a matter of seconds, they battered down the front door. Inside, mace is sprayed. The 6-year-old in the protective arms of one of the men who last November rescued him at sea. Facing an agent with an automatic weapon, Donato Dalrymple hands over a frantic Elian who is crying, "What's happening? Help me, help me." Later, the government would point out the agent did not have his finger on the trigger.
Go, get out now!
Now in the arms of a female immigration officer, Elian is rushed out of the door. Stunned protesters driven back by volleys of pepper spray. It's all over in 3 minutes. Elian on the way by helicopter and airplane to Washington to be reunited with his father. Inside the house, at first, Elian's relatives in shock. Then anger. Elian's great-uncle Lazaro.
With weapons, they were threatening my daughter with machine guns.
They told me, "Give me the boy, I'm gonna shoot, give me the boy, give me the boy, give me the..." And they said a bad word, "Give me the boy, give me the boy." And I said, "Please, don't let the boy see this. Please, I will give you the boy. Don't let him see this, he's seen enough."
And I just tried to protect him, and they grabbed this little boy in a rage. And if they didn't traumatize him, I don't know what it was.
A bitter sense of betrayal felt by the family and those who had been supporting their defiance of the Justice Department order to surrender the boy.
And while we were on the phone talking to the mediator, who was dealing with the Attorney General, the house was tear-gassed.
150 days, a standoff with the federal government and Fidel Castro ending in just 3 minutes. No bloodshed, no serious injury, but here, plenty of anger. Kerry Sanders, NBC News, Miami.
Tonight, father and son are at Andrews Air Force Base outside of Washington, and NBC's Campbell Brown has the latest from there. Good evening, Campbell.
Good evening, John. Well, as you can see behind me, a small group of protesters have gathered outside of Andrews, but the family is well away from here on the base where they have decided to stay for the next few days. They view Andrews as a place that is safe, where they are somewhat protected from the media glare, and where Juan Miguel Gonzalez can get reacquainted with his son after 5 months apart.
The first pictures of Elian after the reunion show a beaming son in the arms of his father with his stepmother and half-brother, a family which looks happy to be together. Clear proof, according to Juan Miguel Gonzalez's attorney Greg Craig, that Elian is now where he belongs.
It didn't take a whole lot, I think, to restore the connection that those two individuals have and will have forever.
Now today, Elian's father signed an order agreeing not to leave the country until the appeals court decides whether or not Elian can apply for a political asylum. Oral arguments in the case are set to begin May 11th. It could take at least a month before the court decides, and with the appeals that will most certainly follow, John, it could be a year before we get a final decision. John?
NBC's Campbell Brown, thank you. Now to the anger in Miami over this morning's raid. A wide area of Little Havana has been closed to traffic. Protests have been in progress for most of the day. NBC's Frederica Whitfield is on the scene tonight. Good evening, Frederica.
Good evening, John. Well, moments after Elian's removal from his Miami relative's home, people who had been holding peaceful vigils took to the streets. Anger boiled over in much of Miami's Little Havana section.
Watch back right here.
In the early morning hours, some took their anger out on American flags. Emotions running high.
What are you hiding from us, Bill Clinton? Why are you doing this to us? Why?
Outbursts among the hundreds waving Cuban flags, setting fires in the streets, burning tires, trash, furniture, whatever was handy. All while denouncing the federal government's action today.
I am an American and the American government has betrayed us.
We gotta ask for justice for that little boy.
Trying to keep order, Miami police in riot gear and wearing gas masks. At times using pepper spray to disperse the crowd.
You see what they did to us? Did you see what they did to us?
There were numerous arrests and tense moments for those in uniform.
I know of one sergeant who was hit in the head with a rock when he was trying to rescue a couple of Wackenhut security guards. Apparently the crowd thought they were federal agents.
At one time, Lieutenant Schwartz himself had to be escorted to safety. Dade County Mayor and Cuban American Alex Pinellas.
I'm personally indignant over what happened this morning. We also have to understand that we must follow the law.
Miami City Mayor Joe Carollo, also a Cuban American, called the raid disheartening, but appealed for nonviolent protests.
The hurt is so great, but no matter how hurt we are, this community cannot react with its heart. It has to react with its head.
Trying to explain how the passion among mostly Cuban American demonstrators turned to such outrage, Pedro Freire is an outspoken community leader.
We feel humiliated. There was no need to do this. We can't come to grips with it.
At least 127 people have been arrested, but demonstrators say they have something else planned. Monday, a general strike threatening to close down businesses here. John?
NBC's Frederica Whitfield in the tent city of Miami. Thank you. Coming up, the healing, the emotional scars now carried by Elian Gonzalez.
Every classic TV show has an untold story. Tonight, get the inside scoop on Star Trek. Inside Classic TV. Tonight, 11 Eastern on MSNBC.
Does everybody know what this is? A heart. 50 million Americans suffer from high blood pressure. There are no symptoms, yet high blood pressure is the primary cause of heart disease. There are still millions who are unable to lower their blood pressure with medication. That's why we're developing this new medicine, and it has excellent effectiveness in treating blood pressure. Maybe by the time these kids are my age, we'll have found a way to prevent high blood pressure in everyone.
Take it easy. You're at Ramada. Take a few laps. Have a few laughs. Save a few bucks. With Ramada's bed and breakfast getaways, you'll save big on deluxe accommodations. Plus, get a free breakfast for two, now through May 25th. For reservations, call 1-800-2-RAMADA.
We took one of the 10 best engines in America, improved it, beefed up the horsepower, and actually put it in the Pathfinder. This is a V6 that's got more horsepower than many V8s, which means you can literally go to the ends of the earth. Tow a small barn, blow by a sports car on the Autobahn. Not that you would, but you could.
I wasted way too much time being fat. I would go up and down and up and down. Look at me. I lost over 50 pounds on the Slim Fast plan, and I kept it off for over 3 years. I didn't know I looked like this underneath. It's not only about being thin, it's about feeling good and having energy. I exercise, I eat right. I have a shake for lunch every day. It helps me stay this way. If you know your ABCs, you know the vitamins in Slim Fast. It's a fun way of rejuvenating your body.
Slim Fast, every day. Get healthy.
It can happen to you.
For more than 5 months now, there's been a cascade of striking images of Elian Gonzalez beamed around the country and the world. NBC's Andrea Mitchell now from the beginning of the saga up to the present.
Thanksgiving Day, a boy not yet 6 has witnessed the death of his mother and the loneliness of 2 days clinging to an inner tube at sea. Motherless and alone in a foreign land, suddenly he faces culture shock. A boy from a fishing village in Cuba is showered with toys, games, a birthday puppy. He becomes a powerful political symbol on constant display, often with politicians. Elian now connects to his sole surviving parent only by occasional telephone calls. Calls often interrupted or missed entirely when he's taken away to visit theme parks. The legal tug-of-war escalates. And suddenly, in January, an awkward reminder of home. His grandmothers arrive for a brief, supervised visit, offering more confusion than comfort. Finally, the government acts, yet another shock to a clearly terrified child.
We had Spanish-speaking female agents. The conversation goes along the lines of, this may seem very scary right now, but it will soon be better. We're taking you to see your papa.
But an indelible image, a child looking down the barrel of a gun. The government tries to minimize the trauma as best it can.
One of the things that we learned from our experts was that the squeezing of Play-Doh is the best thing that you can do for a child who might be experiencing stress.
And then, just hours later, a very different Elian, what is described as a joyous reunion with his father, but hardly the last chapter in this international drama. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
And joining us now is Dr. Jerry Weiner, one of the child psychiatrists now consulting the Justice Department on how to help Elian deal with the emotional roller coaster he's been on for these past 5 months. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening.
Let me ask you first, what impact could this early morning raid have on the little boy?
Well, we knew from the beginning that if this kind of action became necessary because of the intransigence of the family in Miami, that Elian would undoubtedly be very frightened and very confused and bewildered by what was happening. I do think it's important to note that the gun was not being pointed at Elian, that the trigger finger was not on the trigger, and that doesn't mean it wasn't frightening to Elian, but there was no danger that he was in fact, at that time. However, you can expect that he had a very frightening experience.
And he has been through so many traumatic events, including the death of his mother. How do psychiatrists help him cope?
Well, the first thing and the most important thing I think that we all agreed on was that this boy needed to be taken out of the artificial atmosphere in which he was being paraded, basically, and he needed to be reunited with his surviving parent. He had a father that he grew up with, a father that he was always close to. He had a family. That was the most important step to take in helping him to begin to get over this trauma. He's never had a chance to even begin to cope with the loss of his mother because of the nature of the circumstances in which he's found himself. Now I think a real healing process can begin, and the family has been informed that whatever professional help they need will be made available to them.
Doctor, how do you really know what's going on in the mind of such a young boy?
Well, you don't really know what's going on in Elian's individual mind, but you know, in general, the range of issues that a 6-year-old boy is going to be facing with the traumatic loss of his mother, with having left Cuba under the circumstances that he did to begin with the long separation from his other parent, the father. We don't know all the things he's been told during the time that he's been with the family in Miami. But we tried, and the Justice Department and the Attorney General tried everything I think they possibly could to avoid what eventually became necessary if Elian was ever going to be reunited with his father.
Dr. Jerry Weiner, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now to Cuba and the reaction to today's developments. You're looking at a live picture of a rally in Elian's home province of Matanzas, celebrating the reunion of father and son. But as NBC's Jim Avila reports, across Cuba today, things were low-key.
Cuban TV, cartoons interrupted by a stern announcer reading government communiques. Quote, Elian has been removed from the Miami kidnappers. Keep celebrations dignified and tranquil. In Cardenas, where word has reached Juan Miguel's hometown friends, a noon celebration canceled by party leaders. Old neighbors took their happiness inside. Cuban writer Miguel Barnett described his people as wounded by the long ordeal, but grateful.
We want to see him very soon arriving at the Cuban airport.
The only official rally, originally scheduled as a protest in Juan Miguel's home province, turned into a national party, featuring an appearance by Castro himself. The Cubans insist that since Elian can't come home to Cuba, part of Cuba should be given visas to join Elian in the United States. Among those ready to go, Elian's classmate, 6-year-old Dianela Catelles, all packed, new clothes, a fresh school uniform, and school supplies. One of 12 children, Castro is outfitted for the trip, demanding U.S. State Department visas for them. Her mother, Cecilia Macias, says Dianela was picked because of her good grades and her friendship with Elian. There's no way of knowing how much choice in the matter Cecilia really has, but she told NBC News and our Communist Party escort she supports the mission despite natural concerns about sending her daughter to a foreign country.
As a mother, I feel worried, tense, but I know there are a lot of people that would look after the kids.
The Cuban government says it wants to recreate Elian's classroom and surround him with hometown friends, both in the U.S. and when he returns to Cuba. Desks and other Cardenas schoolhouse supplies have already been sent to Havana and installed in a beachfront mansion chosen to house Elian, his parents, and friends when he comes back. Jim Avila, NBC News, Havana.
Now, Elian Gonzalez's Miami relatives have just arrived at Andrews Air Force Base, where father and son are staying tonight. They would like to see Elian Gonzalez, but so far that has not happened, and it is not expected to happen, at least tonight. When we continue, a moment-by-moment look at how the decision to seize Elian today was made.
Today in Money Magazine reveal women's secrets to making money. Of course, just watching won't make you rich, but it couldn't hurt. A special series sponsored by Talbot's, May 1st on Today.
I hate grapes. Green and purple and seedless. Sure, they taste great. But on a supermarket floor, they can make for nasty slips and falls. Hi, I'm Al Mangoni, a safety specialist with Liberty Mutual Insurance. There's no reason the supermarket floor should ever be a dangerous place. So we're working on non-slip flooring and other materials to keep you safe.
At Liberty Mutual, we help you live a safer, more secure life. It's insurance in action.
I also hate banana.
Hello, I'm Daphne Brogdon.
And I'm Gary Valentine.
We're your hosts on an exciting new show for movie lovers, Movie Showcase on DirecTV.
Each week, we'll show you the hottest new movies and original series on premium movie services, HBO, Starz, and Showtime.
And check out the newest releases on Direct Ticket pay-per-view.
Plus, movie trivia and more. There's a new show starting every Monday on Channel 100 and 500.
So join us on Movie Showcase on DirecTV.
We missed the show again.
Stop blinking. 12, 12,
You said it was on Thursday night.
You taped the wrong show.
No. Take control of your TV. Philips introduces TiVo, the personal TV service that lets you watch what you want, when you want. TiVo automatically finds and records your favorite shows every time they air. It even lets you pause live TV. So you never miss a minute of the action. And now it's only $2.99. So take control, because with TiVo, you run the show. Available only on the Philips personal TV recorder.
The pre-dawn retrieval of Elian Gonzalez came as many had begun thinking that a voluntary handover was in the offing. A moment-by-moment account on how things changed from NBC's Pete Williams.
At one point very early this morning, Attorney General Janet Reno thought she might be able to tell federal agents to stand down, that a deal for a peaceful and voluntary handover could be within reach. Officials say Reno had actually approved the tactical plan on Friday. Officers would enter the Miami house Saturday. Some of her advisors counseled waiting until dawn, fearing a nighttime operation would be too controversial. But the tactical planners pushed for going to the house much earlier, around 4 a.m., when the crowd would be at its smallest. By Friday afternoon, the plan was in place. But suddenly, a potential break. A prominent Miami lawyer calls the Attorney General to say he'd like to try brokering a deal. Reno encourages him, but says, without explanation, any deal has to be done by Friday night. For nearly 12 hours, the Miami group talks back and forth between Elian's father and the Miami relatives. A possible deal. Both families would live together at a retreat outside Washington while the asylum case is on appeal. But by 3 a.m., a deal seems impossible. Still, Reno holds off the Miami federal agents for an extra hour, giving the final go-ahead at 4:05 a.m. 5:10 a.m., agents move into place. The first ones to hit the street fan out to provide security. Others run to the back of the house to block rear doors and windows and to guard it from neighbors. 5:15 a.m., a specially trained Border Patrol unit called a high-risk entry team goes into the house. Reno says there's a reason they're well armed.
We had received information that there were guns, perhaps in the crowd, perhaps in the house. It was unclear, but that the safety of all involved was paramount.
3 minutes later, they dash out with Elian. By 5:21, the entire team has left the neighborhood, heading off for the helicopter pad. Officials praise the officers who'd been training for the past week for a mission Janet Reno hoped they'd never have to carry out. Pete Williams, NBC News, Washington.
There have been some late developments outside the home of the Miami relatives in Little Havana, and NBC's Suzanne Malveaux is standing by with more on that. Suzanne?
Yes, well, I can tell you right now there are about 100 Miami police officers who are on the scene at this hour in riot gear with their shields and their helmets. They are armed with pepper spray. They are clearing out the area in front of Elian Gonzalez's home. We saw at least one demonstrator being arrested in front of the house. This just developed after a group of about 6 to 12 individuals, demonstrators, who did not like what CNN was reporting, apparently calling them the pro-Castro network, that there were suggestions that perhaps the police were not overreacting in their taking of Elian Gonzalez this morning. That suggestion angered quite a few people, and they started throwing things. CNN cleared out of the staged area in which they were set up, and that's when the Miami police riot patrol was called out here to clear out the block in front of this home. You can see them at the end of the block here. They have barricaded and made several arrests.
All right, NBC's Suzanne Malveaux in Little Havana, thank you very much. On to the mission of Elian's Miami relatives, now carrying their crusade to Washington, where many in Congress are sympathetic. Here's NBC's John Palmer.
A crowd of supporters chanting, "We want justice," greeted the Miami family as they arrived in Washington less than 12 hours after Elian was taken from their home. They were described as exhausted, but drove to Capitol Hill looking for support. Their hopes for an immediate meeting with Elian were dashed. That was ruled out at least for several days. Earlier today, several members of Congress said they think the Washington trip is a good idea.
I think it's important for the Miami family to try to see Elian and to insist on seeing Elian. There's significant concern about brainwashing, about Elian being drugged.
The family also wants meetings with Attorney General Reno and President Clinton. White House officials quickly said a meeting with the president was out of the question, that relatives should direct their inquiries to the Justice Department or the Immigration Service.
We don't believe that it's appropriate for the president to communicate directly.
Far from Miami, there was a dramatic demonstration of support for the family and opposition to the raid today. On the New Jersey side of the Hudson River, protesters blocked access to New York's Lincoln Tunnel. Meanwhile, Republican members of Congress bitterly attacked the White House for the pre-dawn raid.
It's typical of this Justice Department
that ignores the rules, the Constitution, the laws, and due process rights of people. And I just think it's abominable.
House Republican Whip Tom DeLay called it a kidnapping and said it was reminiscent of Castro's communist Cuba. The White House fired back at its Republican critics, charging they were exploiting the Elian Gonzalez case for political purposes. John Palmer, NBC News at the White House.
And we'll be back with more news in a moment.
Every classic TV show has an untold story. Tonight, get the inside scoop on Star Trek, Inside Classic TV. Tonight, 11 Eastern on MSNBC.
I have a great respect for the sun. I believe in the sun.
He also has a thing about trees. And in the embers of a wood-burning stove, he sees a power plant of the future.
Fossil fuels on their own can't be the answer.
He believes one day almost half our energy could come from renewable sources, like solar panels and sustainable forests. He's been called a dreamer and an oddball.
And I've been called a hippie.
But more recently, a project manager for Shell.
Some people are always thinking, obsessed with finding better answers and solutions. For them, there's Office.com, the new internet workplace with the tools and resources business people need most.
Anything else?
Relish. I need relish.
Office.com, the new way to work.
I love to call my old teammates, and I can call them anytime I want, thanks to MCI Fasteners every day. So, Bucks, how's the team?
Well, Michael, it's a rebuilding year.
With MCI Fasteners every day, calls are only 5 cents a minute, every evening, and all weekend long. Hey, Bucks, any bright spots?
There is this Australian kid. Got moves just like you.
Stay in touch with old friends and new. Just call 1-800 every day to join.
Now back to our top story, today's federal raid to retrieve Elian Gonzalez. We first go to Andrews Air Force Base, where the Miami relatives are trying to get in to see the little boy and his father. That has not happened yet. And outside the family's house in Little Havana, police have moved in to try to disperse a crowd there. NBC's Frederica Whitfield is standing by in a tense Miami tonight with more. Frederica.
Miami police stay posted here in the major intersections throughout Little Havana, while the majority of the fires that were burning earlier today have been put out, and the hundreds of people who are clogging the streets have since gone away. Many demonstrators are vowing to conduct traffic slowdowns this evening and threaten another general strike on Monday, which could affect businesses. John?
NBC's Frederica Whitfield, thanks again. And that is NBC Nightly News for this Saturday. Continuing coverage of the Elian Gonzalez case here on MSNBC, and tomorrow on Sunday Today and Meet the Press. I'm John Seigenthaler in New York. Good night.
This September, the Olympics from Australia on CNBC, MSNBC, and the NBC Television Network, America's Olympic Networks.